Hello, friends. If you're curious about the movie Autumn and the Black Jaguar, 2024, you're in the perfect place. Don't forget to give this video a quick like, it really helps us out. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to stay updated on all the latest movie deep dives. Let's jump right in. Dawn breaks over a dense rainforest, mist rising from the undergrowth like spirits bidding farewell to the night. Sunlight filters through emerald canopies, painting dappled patterns on the forest floor. A solitary figure moves with purpose among ancient roots, her breath steady despite the weight of urgency pressing on her chest. In her hand, a faded photograph flutters, an image of a majestic black jaguar poised on a rocky outcrop, eyes gleaming with intelligence. That creature, more legend than reality to most, becomes a living enigma, its very existence challenging the lines between human obsession and natural wonder. From this opening heartbeat, we sense that what follows will be more than a simple adventure. It will be a collision of myth and mortality, of a woman's past and the forest's unfathomable depths. Our heroine is restless, both haunted and driven by memories of a childhood spent chasing shadows through these same trees. She left this place believing the jaguar was a story told by elders to teach respect for all life, a cautionary tale as much as a promise of beauty. But when reports surface of a rare botanical specimen found only in the jaguar's rumored territory, she returns. The plot sweeps forward on a current of scholarly intrigue and primal fear. A team of scientists, each harboring their own motivations, assembles under her reluctant guidance. They laugh at her warnings until the forest responds with a low, resonant growl that vibrates through the ground. In that moment, the expedition becomes a quest for more than roots and spores. It becomes a search for truth buried beneath centuries of human disregard. At the heart of the story lies a remote research station perched on the edge of a rushing river, its metal walkways snaking through towering kapok trees draped in vines. The station's neon lights contrast sharply with the organic gloom beyond. Here, our group pores over maps and data, their conversations laced with scientific jargon and personal angst. One biologist dreams of fame that might save her crumbling career. A journalist hungers for a story that will catapult her into the international spotlight. A guide, born to this land, carries secrets his lips refuse to part. And the leader, once a skeptic of myth, now senses forces beyond reason pulling her toward a reckoning. The interplay of these personalities creates a tapestry rich with conflict. Ego and wonder clash beneath the storm-lashed sky, and alliances shift like sands in the river's relentless current. When the first sighting occurs, glimpsed through the foliage at dusk, the air crackles with disbelief and exhilaration. A sleek shadow with eyes like molten gold slinks between ferns, leaving behind footprints so enormous they seem forged by legend. The team freezes, hearts pounding in unison with the animal's measured breathing. Cameras click, breath hitches, and for a moment, time dissolves into a single heartbeat of exaltation. But exhilaration sours as another member vanishes without a sound, leaving only a torn piece of coat snagged on a branch. The chill of fear punctures the air. What had felt like a triumphant discovery now strains every nerve with the reminder that this jungle yields its secrets on its own terms, and not always in ways the living will survive. As night descends, the forest transforms into an orchestra of suspense. Cicadas hum a relentless undercurrent, tree frogs trill in haunting chorales. Sparks of phosphorescence hover like stars fallen to earth. The station's floodlights struggle against the depths of black. Inside, the remaining team debates their next step. Pursue the creature deeper, risking life and limb for a single specimen's proof, or retreat to civilization with half the story and all the terror. Our protagonist's resolve hardens. She refuses to leave fragments of truth unclaimed, even if that truth demands a price she cannot yet fathom. The camera lingers on her silhouette against the shaking lights, a solitary sentinel braced against the horizon of menace. Morning reveals the river swollen with last night's storms, its banks shredded by murky currents. Trees lie toppled across its width like fallen giants, and the station's lower walkways float above the rapid's roar. The guide consults an ancient chart etched onto bark, pointing out a narrow passage known only to his ancestors. They venture forth on makeshift rafts, paddles slashing at currents that threaten to capsize them with every wave. Each stroke feels like an act of faith, a plea to unseen powers that govern forest and river alike. Above them, wary birds wheel in silent patterns, as if sorting God's judgments from men's trespasses. It is a breathtaking ballet of danger and beauty, a testament to the film's mastery of blending exhilarating action with poetic spectacle. Deep in the jungle's heart, the expedition's fragile unity fractures. The biologist accuses the leader of endangering lives for academic vanity. The journalist secretly records the confrontation, eyes glinting at the prospect of scandal. Yet just as threats mount, the forest offers a gift, a hidden grove of ghostly orchids blooming in moonlight, their petals woven with bioluminescent veins. The spectacle silences every critic, their faces reflecting in the flowers' soft glow. For a fleeting moment, humanity and wilderness unite in awe. The orchid's pollen drifts like snowflakes across damp palms, a reminder that even in this savage domain, life offers moments of transcendent grace. It is an interlude of fragile hope before the shadows reawaken with their hungry demands. Not long after, the true majesty of the black panther emerges. Under a canopy of ancient ceiba trees, the animal strides into a ring of clearing, its coat shimmering like obsidian in the filtered sun. In the hush that follows, every breath feels sacramental, every twig's crack resonates like a verdict. The leader stands spellbound, heart racing with the thrill of communion. Yet admiration curdles to dread when she notices the jaguar guarding something at its feet, a tiny cub with fur mottled by leaves and dirt, gasping for air. The creature's eyes meet hers in a gaze of recognition, as though it knows she carries both the promise of salvation and the threat of exposure. The moment stretches beyond time, collapsing the distance between human and wild, between the need to protect and the urge to possess. When the cub staggers toward the group, desperation fueling its steps, the expedition's moral compass shatters. Some move to shield it, hearts crackling with compassion. Others raise weapons, minds aflame with the prospect of black market riches. The journalist's finger hovers over the shutter, torn between capturing the moment and intervening. The guide, torn by ancestral code, pleads for restraint. And the leader, caught in the panther's ancient gaze, must decide whether to honor the pact between species or to defy it for the sake of human ambition. This clash of wills ignites the film's most electrifying sequence, a riot of motion and emotion as jungle laws and human laws collide in a torrent of rain and roars. Chaos erupts in a maelstrom of crackling thunder and roiling water. The panther snarls, its cubs' cry echoing through the tangle of vines. Bullets, fired in panic, shatter tree trunks, sending splinters flying like deadly darts. The ground trembles beneath a stampede of wild boar burst into flight by sudden percussion. In the confusion, the leader finds herself cradling the cub, arms slick with rain and blood. Her colleagues either flee in terror or press on with grim resolve. And overhead, storm clouds part just enough to let a single shaft of sunlight pierce the canopy, illuminating the mother's charging silhouette in a moment of mythical grandeur. The chiaroscuro plays across her muscles rippling beneath fur, her eyes fixed on the intruder who holds her child. Then comes the harrowing choice: release the cub back into the wild and risk watching both vanish into the forest's maw, or carry it to the station where salvation mingles with captivity. As the panther's relentlessness crescendos, a symphony of longing and vengeance, the leader steps aside, setting the cub gently on the ground. With a final heart-wrenching look, she meets the mother's gaze, and in that exchange, centuries of separation collapse in a breath. The panther nuzzles its cub once, twice, then vanishes into the green maw with silent grace, leaving the leader alone with the echo of paw steps fading into infinity. In the aftermath, the station lies in ruins, its metal skeleton twisted by the river's wrath. The biologist, shaken, abandons her quest for fame in favor of a new mission, to protect and preserve. The journalist, lens filled with footage of the orchid grove and the panther's charge, hesitates before pressing record, realizing some stories demand restraint. And the guide, eyes shining with a serenity born of reconciliation, offers the leader a carved talisman, a jaguar's paw sculpted from river-worn stone, a promise of guardianship between their worlds. She clutches it, aware that her life's path has been irrevocably altered. No longer a mere observer, she is now a keeper of secrets older than any language. As dawn breaks once more over wind-carved ridges, our heroine stands at the country's edge, talisman in hand, rain still dripping from her hair. Behind her stretched the wild she thought she knew, now transformed by blood, bloom, and the pulse of living myth. Ahead lies a world of uncertain possibilities. Research grants or silence, acclaim or obscurity, civilization's clamor or the hush of the forest. Her breath comes steady now, each exhale a vow that some truths must remain unspoken, some bonds unbroken. The camera pulls back to reveal the vast expanse of green, punctuated by distant peaks that vanish into clouds. In that final tableau, we sense that the story's heart will echo wherever humans and wilderness meet, wherever curiosity and respect must find their balance. And so our journey concludes, dear friends, but its echoes linger. The tale you've seen is one of wonder and reckoning, of nature's fragile magnificence and humanity's fragile conscience. It reminds us that some mysteries exist to humble us, that some bonds between species transcend our need to conquer. As the credits roll and the screen fades to black, ask yourself, when you glimpse the wild world beyond your window, do you see a realm to exploit or a legacy to honor? That whisper in the trees, that shimmer of movement in the shadows, may be more than imagination. It may be an invitation. The question is, will you answer its call? Dawn broke over the rainforest in a rush of golden light that banished the last vestiges of night. In a small clearing, the expedition's leader knelt beside a cluster of orchids so fragile they seemed spun from moonlight. Her fingers brushed a single petal, and for a moment she drew in her breath as though she could inhale the flower's whispered secrets. This was why she had returned, the promise of discovery and redemption woven into that silent bloom. The memory of childhood treks through these ancient trees, guided by her grandmother's stories of the Black Jaguar, surged through her veins. The air felt tighter now, charged with expectation, as though the forest itself leaned forward to watch what would come next. Behind her, the makeshift research station, its metal walkways hugging kapok trunks, hummed with the quiet bustle of scientists and support staff preparing for the day's work. The botanist, her cheeks flushed with excitement, adjusted her camera lens to capture the orchid's phosphorescent veins. Nearby, the zoologist rifled through field notes, muttering measurements and growth patterns like a litany. The journalist hovered, recorder in hand, eyes alight with the prospect of the story that would vault her career. And the guide, silent and watchful, laid out GPS coordinates on a damp table, the maps curling at the edges from last night's rain. Each person embodied a different dream, yet all were bound by a fragile thread of hope, that they would glimpse the legendary panther, that they would find validation for their life's work, that they would taste a truth more vital than the oxygen pulsing through the humid air. As the team set out along the river's edge, the guide led with practiced surety. He pointed out subtle signs, a crushed leaf here, a tuft of fur caught on a barbed vine there. To most, these clues seemed random. To him, they were chapters in a hidden story. The leader trailed his pace by a heartbeat, heart fluttering with the possibility that they were tracking something far more elusive than any plant. The botanist fumbled with her equipment, capturing every root and petal she could find, certain that the region's rare algae and mosses held the secrets of climate resilience. The journalist filmed close-ups of water droplets glinting like diamonds on broad leaves, her voice hushed as if even the camera might disturb the forest's hush. Their progress brought them to a broad bend in the river where sunlight fractured through branches, creating a kaleidoscope of patterns on the water's surface. The guide signaled a pause. He crouched to examine a cluster of footprints pressed into soft mud. Upright and immense, they measured nearly a foot in length, the toes splayed like an artist's flourish. The lead scientist pressed forward, peering intently at the tracks, her breath caught in her throat. "Jaguar," she whispered, voice reverent. The group froze, their shared exhilaration radiating through the clearing. For the first time, they had tangible proof. The panther had been here. Excitement rippled, but the guide's face remained calm, arms folded as though weighing their next move against some silent protocol. At the station again, the botanist catalogued her finds while the leader reviewed the footprint measurements. The panther had been here. Excitement rippled, but the guide's face remained calm, arms folded as though weighing their next move against some silent protocol. At the station again, the botanist catalogued her finds while the leader reviewed the footprint measurements. The map spread out before her looked different now, no longer abstractions of territory but living corridors pulsing with possibility. She gathered the team in the central pavilion, where model specimens hung in glass cases. "We stand on the edge of two discoveries," she said. "One botanical, one zoological. Each has the power to reshape how the world sees this place, and us." The zoologist nodded, his gaze flickering to the window where the forest pressed against metal beams. "But we must tread carefully," he cautioned. "We're guests in a realm that doesn't answer to our rules." That afternoon, a sudden squall swept in, rain pounding on corrugated metal roofs like machine gun fire. The team huddled in the pavilion as flash floods transformed tributaries into muddy torrents. The guide calmly checked water levels, warning that certain routes would become impassable. The journalist seized the moment to interview the leader, her recorder capturing not just words but the roar of wind through canopy. "What does it mean to chase a phantom in a storm?" she asked. The leader closed her eyes, as though seeking solidarity with the forest's ancient forces. "It means learning when to follow and when to listen," she replied. "When to push deeper and when to hold fast." The next morning, the sky cleared only to reveal a transformed landscape, entire stands of bamboo bent beneath flooding, fallen trees lying across narrow trails. The crew spent hours clearing debris, hauling branches and vines off the path. Their efforts forged a camaraderie born of shared hardship, sweat mingling with laughter as they collaborated to restore the way forward. The guide's disciplined leadership kept panic at bay, and even the most anxious hesitated to suggest retreat when every step carried the promise of revelation. In the restoration of the trail, the botanist's keen eye spotted an injured coati tangled in vines. Its fur matted with sap and mud, the small mammal whimpered as she approached. Instinct warred with protocol. In most research protocols, wild animals were off-limits unless in extreme circumstances. But compassion won out. She knelt, gently teasing the vines apart, while the leader fetched water. As they worked together, team lines blurred, scientist, guide, and leader all united in a single act of mercy. When the coati scampered into the underbrush, the group stood in solemn circle, the shared gesture binding them closer than any data log ever could. Reinvigorated, they pressed onward toward higher ground where the guide swore the Jaguar's main trail diverged. Around midday, the forest canopy opened to reveal rocky outcrops draped in lichen and moss. The guide paused, lowering his voice in wonder. He pointed to a clearing bathed in sunlight where the remains of a tapir lay. The zoologist's stomach clenched at the sight of puncture wounds carved with inhuman precision. The leader knelt, tracing the arcs with gloved fingers. This was no ordinary predator. The size and technique suggested an apex animal that had honed its craft over generations. The news spread through the group like wildfire, fueling equal parts awe and dread. That evening, they set up camp in a saddle between two rocky ridges. Lanterns glowed like distant stars as each team member tended separate tasks: cooking, data logging, gear maintenance. The atmosphere brimmed with anticipation. The journalist, once driven by ambition, confided in the leader that her excitement had shifted. She now felt protective, fearful of what might happen if outsiders disturbed the balance here. They spoke in whispers, voices low so as not to carry beyond the campfire's glow. The zoologist, overhearing, shared tales of old families who claimed the jaguar was more than animal, an avatar of the forest spirit, a guardian that punished arrogance. The leader absorbed every word, her resolve deepening into something almost sacred. Before dawn, a distant roar rumbled through the valley. Its tone was neither beastly nor entirely natural, but resonant, as though carved from the very bones of the world. Boots hit the ground, campfires snuffed out in a flurry of motion. The group, hearts pounding, crept down the slope, the roar repeating like a summons. They reached the base of the ridges only to witness the river of mist rising above the trees, swirling around rocky pinnacles. And there, standing sentinel on a moss-covered boulder, was the silhouette of a massive black jaguar, its form etched against the pale dawn. It exhaled a low growl that tore through the silence, then slipped into the mist, vanishing as though it had never been. Breath held, the group stared at empty air. Beneath the awe, dread settled like a stone in their guts. The jaguar's appearance had been a blessing and a warning. The botanist's voice trembled as she whispered, "We've been watched." The leader nodded, knowing that every step forward now carried intensified risk. They returned to camp in solemn procession, the roar of the jaguar echoing in their thoughts. Sleep that night was elusive, dreams invaded by feline eyes glowing in the dark, pulsing with a heartbeat not entirely human. First light found them packing gear in tense silence. The zoologist, noting the unusual tracks now crisscrossing the clearing, advised caution. The jaguar might be leading them somewhere, or testing their resolve. The guide mapped a new course toward a hidden waterfall that, according to legend, marked the center of the jaguar's domain. The leader agreed, torn between the lure of myth and the safety of retreat. In the end, curiosity triumphed. They set off, following a ribbon of water through dense foliage, the roar of the waterfall growing into a thunderous heartbeat. Approaching the falls, they found a cavern hidden behind the cascade's veil. Moss-lined walls glowed under their headlamps, revealing ancient petroglyphs carved by hands long vanished. The symbols depicted a jaguar in various poses, hunting, resting, nurturing cubs. At the center, a figure, half jaguar, half human, extended a paw in supplication. The sight stole their breath. The leader stepped forward, fingertips brushing the cold rock as though seeking a transfer of wisdom. The guide explained that his ancestors believed the cavern a sacred site of communion, where humans could plead for the forest's favor. The team stood in hushed reverence, the weight of history heavy as the mist-soaked air. Then the ground trembled. The waterfall's roar crescendoed, and from behind the veil came the unmistakable pads of paws moving through water and stone. The group spun, breath caught between fear and exhilaration, to see the panther emerge into the cavern's entrance, its stripes glistening like obsidian carved from moonlight. It padded forward with measured grace, fire glinting in its eyes. The leader stepped forward, heart pounding, and extended her hand in the ancient gesture depicted in the carvings. The panther halted, studying her for a moment that felt like an eternity, then lowered its massive head. In that silent exchange, a bridge formed between species, an acknowledgment that human intentions here could be pure or profane. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed overhead. A slab of rock dislodged by water's relentless force tumbled into the cavern, sending shards of stone into the darkness. In the chaos, the panther bolted upriver, a streak of living shadow. Adrenaline spiked. The team raced after it, guided only by the roar of the waterfall and the beast's fading growls. They tumbled across slick stones, hearts drumming in unison with the panther's retreating steps. When they reached the waterfall's edge, they found nothing but the thunderous curtain of water, the cavern swallowed in mist once more. Panting, bruised, hearts racing, they realized how deep they now were, physically and spiritually. The botanist cradled a broken fragment of petroglyph, determined to document every symbol. The zoologist recorded footprints leading into swirling spray. The journalist's lens filmed the empty cavern, knowing the real story lay in what was unseen. The leader stood at the waterfall's base, drenched and trembling, tasting the tang of storm and sacrifice on her tongue. They had followed whispers into the forest's hidden heart and encountered the living myth at its core. Yet questions pulsed as urgently as their own blood. What secrets did the panther guard? What price would they pay to unravel the cavern's ancient pact? And could their fragile band stand firm when the forest demanded its due? As they made their way back to camp, voices hushed, minds ablaze, the rainforest seemed to shift its textures around them. Ferns brushed their shoulders in silent counsel, and birdsong trilled with accents of warning. The journey ahead would plunge them deeper into both wonder and peril. The botanical wonders they had sought felt fragile against the raw power of the creature they chased. And though they returned to familiar trails, each footprint they left seemed to echo in an uncharted wilderness where human ambition and natural sovereignty danced an undecided tango. In that charged twilight, the expedition stood on the threshold of revelation and ruin, unaware that the true test of their resolve was just beginning. A hush fell over the camp as the team staggered back from the waterfall's edge, each breath a testament to the ordeal they had just survived. The night breeze carried the scent of wet earth and orchids, weaving around them like a benediction. In that quiet, the leader knelt to mark fresh paw prints along the muddy bank, prints that did not belong to any known jaguar. They were larger, more deliberate, as if the forest itself had shaped this creature as sentinel. The team watched in awed silence, understanding that the line between legend and reality had blurred forever. Dawn came without warning, spilling rose-gold light across the canopy. The botanist, still clutching her fragment of petroglyph, met the leader's gaze. "The carvings spoke of a guardian spirit," she said softly. "Now I see why." The zoologist, eyes still wide with wonder, added, "Not just an animal, but a force." Even the journalist, whose recorder had captured every roar and footstep, seemed humbled, her usual hunger for the scoop tempered by reverence. The guide, face unreadable, led them back to camp on a path few outsiders ever trod, his every step measured, as though he walked in sync with an ancient pact. At the station, the team weighed their next moves. Supplies dwindled, and the swollen river threatened their return route. Still, their resolve remained unbroken. The leader gathered everyone beneath the reactor's humming lights. "We've seen what few will believe," she began, voice echoing on corrugated metal. "But discovery means nothing if it destroys what we seek to protect." She laid out options: retreat and preserve their lives, or press deeper and risk everything for knowledge that could save this forest. A silence followed, dense, expectant, before the biologist spoke. "We go forward, for the orchids, for the cub, and for the spirit that demands guardianship." Their journey led them along a ridgeline where the trees thinned, revealing vistas of misty valleys below. Each breath tasted of possibility and dread. The journalist, camera slung over her shoulder, filmed the sweep of green as if charting the uncharted. But when the guide halted at a grove of strangler figs, planted by generations past, she sensed the expedition nearing its climax. The air vibrated with the pulse of unseen wings, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. They pressed into the grove, branches scratching at rain-slicked gear, until the guide held up a trembling hand. Before them lay a hollowed tree trunk, carved with the same mythic symbols as the cavern petroglyphs, only more elaborate, images of a human figure merging with a jaguar, hands outstretched in blessing. Tentatively, the leader reached out to trace the carvings, fingertips brushing damp wood. Instantly, a low rumble shivered through the earth. Leaves trembled, and a pulse of bioluminescence flickered along the carvings, as if ancient magic had awakened. The biologist gasped, eyes wild. "This tree, these carvings, they're alive." At that moment, a jaguar's silhouette flickered between trunks, its eyes glowing like lanterns in the gloom. The creature watched, motionless, as though judging the intruders. Fear and wonder coalesced into reverence. Then, without a sound, it slipped away, leaving only the echo of its departure in the team's collective heartbeat. In the wake of that encounter, whispers of doubt rippled through the group. The journalist's recorder, once held high in pursuit of proof, now felt like a burden too heavy to bear. Schemes of publication and fame gave way to questions of responsibility and stewardship. "If we reveal this," she murmured to the leader, "they'll come with chainsaws and cages." The leader nodded, understanding the weight of disclosure. "Some truths are safe only when they remain hidden," she replied. "Our story is not a headline, but a vow, to protect what cannot protect itself." As night descended, the camp transformed into a nexus of ritual and resolution. Lanterns glowed beneath tarps fashioned into sanctuaries. The botanist arranged samples of algae and orchids along a central table, while the zoologist sketched the jaguar's footprints in the dirt. They spoke in hushed tones of a research station reborn, not as a museum of human conquest, but as a sanctuary for knowledge shared in silence. The guide retrieved his talisman, the carved jaguar's paw, and placed it at the camp's heart. The gesture was a pact, humanity and wilderness, entwined in promise. Before dawn's first light, the team packed with meticulous care. Vials of spores and root samples were secured in waterproof containers. Journals were closed and locked. Data files were encrypted and buried beneath a floorboard. The journalist filmed one final sequence, a slow pan across the empty camp, footprints pressed into mud, lantern stands glinting in the half-light, then switched off her camera. "Some things are better left as memory," she whispered, tucking the recorder into her pack. Their retreat followed a hidden tributary known only to the guide's ancestors. Moss-draped stalactites formed arches overhead, dripping crystalline droplets that echoed like children's laughter. At one bend, they encountered the mother jaguar, regal and fierce, her cub at her side, both watching with unwavering gaze. Time slowed as mother and cub regarded their human visitors. An unspoken understanding passed between them. The guide knelt, offering a silent prayer. The guide knelt, offering a silent prayer. The mother's ears twitched, then she turned and melted into the shadows, the cub bounding after her as if leaving a blessing in their wake. Reaching the main river, the team paused on the high bank, the swollen waters rushing beneath them like history's own current. The station lay buried by undergrowth, metal mangled by storms. They filled canteens with clean water, each sip a baptism into the world they had chosen to rejoin. The leader looked back once, heart heavy with love and loss. The forest had tested them, taught them, and now released them with gifts few would believe, a trove of knowledge etched in living memory, and the silent oath to be unseen guardians. They emerged into civilization as if reborn. The botanist took her specimens to hidden research archives, where a network of clandestine conservationists would safeguard them. The zoologist entrusted his field notes to an underground society of wildlife defenders, their work destined to shape policy in quiet corridors of power. The journalist erased her footage of the jaguar, leaving only personal reflections in a private journal, words meant for her conscience, not the camera's. And the guide returned to his village, sharing stories in hushed ceremonial gatherings, passing the torch of guardianship to the next generation. In the weeks that followed, each team member felt the forest's pulse echo in their daily lives. The leader, seated in her office far from the jungle, stroked the talisman whenever doubt crept in. She declined lucrative speaking offers, choosing instead to mentor young conservationists in remote communities. Her voice, once a clarion for discovery, became a whisper of wisdom, guiding others to find their own pact with the wild. Then, long after the expedition was over, an unexpected visitor arrived at the leader's doorstep, a parcel wrapped in palm leaves, sealed with a single, delicate orchid. Inside lay a fragment of wood carved with jaguar symbols, a gift from the guide's village, a reminder that their story endured beyond memory. Tucked beneath it was a handwritten note, "The forest watches, and those who listen carry its song." The leader held the carving close, realizing that her greatest discovery had been not a species, but a covenant, a living bond between humans and the untamed. Months later, a remote reserve was established at the edge of the forest, its boundaries drawn in invisible ink, known only to a few. Rangers and scientists, sworn to silence, protected the orchids, the algae, and the jaguar's hidden realm. In quiet camps beneath kapok trees, they continued the work begun by the expedition, deepening the pact with each whispered breath. And under dappled sunlight that danced through ancient leaves, the black jaguar prowled in safety, a guardian of secrets older than memory, forever watched over by those who understood that some stories can never be told, and thus must live on in silent reverence. She moves through the rainforest with an almost ritual grace, as though each step is guided by currents of memory hewn into the earth beneath her boots. Her hair, damp from early morning fog, trails wisps of silver as she pauses to brush a fern's frond aside and examine its delicate underside. In her eyes flickers the echo of childhood afternoons spent chasing legends through these same trees, stories her grandmother told by lamplight, where a black jaguar's eyes glowed like embers in the dark. That past shapes every decision she makes now, fueling her determination to protect what she once pursued as a mere mystery. When she stands before the team's scattered gear, her posture is both weary and unbowed, a testament to battles waged against doubt and exhaustion. Compassion tugs at her every action. She offers water to a trembling coati, reassures a frightened colleague, and kneels humbly before the sanctuary of an ancient petroglyph. Quiet fierceness radiates from her, the knowledge that leadership demands not just vision, but empathy to bear the burden of choices made in the name of preservation. The botanist arrives each dawn with a battered backpack and an insatiable appetite for discovery. Her eyes sparkle at the sight of novel orchids revealing their ghostly veins beneath moonlight, her fingers trembling as she adjusts her macro lens to capture each petal's secret code. She traces roots with meticulous patience, murmuring scientific names that tangle around her tongue like vines. Beneath her methodical exterior, however, flickers a fragile ache, years of lectures forgotten, grant applications rejected, and whispered doubts that perhaps she has outgrown her calling. Yet in these depths, nature offers redemption. When she cradles the injured coati in damp palms, her practiced detachment gives way to raw tenderness. Later, as she catalogues samples under the glow of lanterns, her brow furrows not with academic precision alone, but with reverence for life's tenacity. In her cataloging lies a hymn of hope, that the smallest bloom can herald the survival of entire ecosystems, and that her work may yet tip the scales in favor of yielding conservation. The zoologist carries his own brand of quiet intensity, an undercurrent of coiled energy that surfaces when he studies the jaguar's footprints pressed into mud. He speaks little, preferring the eloquence of data, measurements, behavioral patterns, heartbeat recordings transmitted via hidden microphones. But in the dark hours, when camp lanterns sputter and the forest's chorus hums around him, he reveals shards of doubt. What does it mean, he wonders, to reduce such a sovereign creature to lines on a chart? In the hush of his tent, he pores over sketches of the creature's anatomy, thumb brushing over the curve of muscle that grants its silent power. When he watches the mother jaguar nuzzle her cub, his stoic mask slips, revealing the ache of responsibility. Knowledge must not become a weapon. His loyalty to discovery clashes with love for the wild, forging an internal crucible that tempers raw ambition into a vow of stewardship. The journalist arrives like a comet, brilliant, restless, her recorder bobbing against her chest, ready to capture every gasp and growl. At first, she sees the expedition as her ticket to acclaim, an exclusive story that will light up headlines. Her questions are sharp, probing, designed to extract confession and conflict. Yet as the jungle's living pulse insinuates itself into her veins, something shifts. Late one storm-lashed night, she catches herself hesitating before filming a wounded coati, a fleeting pause that costs her the scoop but saves her soul. Gradually, ambition gives way to reverence. In her handwritten journal, she records not revelations to be broadcast but silent promises to protect what she has witnessed. Her once trembling fingers learn gentle touch as she closes camera cases with tender respect. By dawn's haze, she realizes that some stories are not meant for the world's glare, but for the sanctity of conscience. The guide moves like a whisper through the trees, cotton tunic blending seamlessly with vines and shadows. Each footfall carries the weight of ancestral knowledge. Paths learned at a child's knee, tales of spirits that dwell in knotted roots and echo through caverns. He speaks rarely, but when he does, his voice resonates with conviction. This land breathes, and it remembers. In the etched lines of the cavern's petroglyphs, he reads both prophecy and promise, guiding his companions not merely by compass but by an ancient contract between humanity and wilderness. He watches the jaguar's form materialize out of mist with neither surprise nor fear, greeting it as kin. He offers prayers in a language no outsider hears, hands pressed to carved stone, calling on guardians who predate any map. Yet even his calm conceals conflict, the knowledge that sharing these secrets risks unleashing greed. Each step he leads them back toward safety is born of fierce love for the forest's hidden heart and a vow to protect its mysteries. The jaguar itself stands as living poetry, muscles rippling beneath fur polished like starless night, each breath a testament to silent dominion. She appears atop a boulder at dawn, eyes gleaming gold as if the sunrise itself dwells within her gaze. Her presence transforms the forest into a cathedral. The wind holds its breath, and every creature falls silent in reverence. She is not merely a beast but an avatar of wilderness's primal will, her cub held close beneath her flank like a living promise. When she charges through rain-slick brush to retrieve her stolen cub, her snarl shatters the illusion of human control, reminding the expedition that they are guests in her realm. In the final confrontation, she offers no mercy to weapons drawn, yet in the quiet that follows, she bestows a blessing, a single nuzzle before she melts into the shadows. In that moment, she embodies a paradox, both destroyer of trespass and bearer of ancient grace. Secondary figures weave their own threads into this tapestry. The camp's engineer, wrenches in hand, tinkers tirelessly to keep generators humming against deluge, believing that technology can be a bridge between worlds. He shivers beneath the rain, eyes bright with the thrill of creating warmth in the cold heart of the jungle. The cook stokes coals and stews roots and tubers, feeding hopes as much as bodies, her laughter a salve against fear. Each morning, she slips a piece of plantain into the leader's hand, an unspoken prayer of sustenance and solidarity. Even minor characters bear their own burdens. The porters hauling gear, who exchange quiet glances when lightning splits the sky, knowing this land holds wonders and horrors beyond imagination. In their actions, steady, often unseen, they embody the film's message, that every soul, no matter how small, shapes the balance between ruin and renewal. Across these figures, relationships form and fracture like drifting currents. The leader's bond with the guide pulses with unspoken understanding. Their glances across lantern-lit floors convey gratitude that transcends words. The botanist and zoologist forge an uneasy alliance, science and spirit entwined in a shared reverence, sharing hushed debates over whether to prioritize data or life. The journalist finds in the leader both mentor and muse, trading confessions instead of sound bites. Through the storms, the rescue of the coati, the discovery of the orchid grove, they learn that trust is built in moments of exposure, when hands brush bark with hope, when eyes meet across stolen prayers, when cameras rest in pockets rather than capturing every second. By journey's end, each character emerges transformed. The leader sheds the bravado of scientific conquest, embracing the mantle of silent guardian. The botanist carries new humility, knowing that preservation is a prayer performed one delicate bloom at a time. The zoologist abandons the sterile comfort of data for the living poetry of muscle and fur. The journalist trades headlines for hushed oaths, understanding that true stories sometimes live in the spaces between publication. The guide returns to his village as a keeper of renewed vows, bearing carvings and tales that will be entrusted to only the worthy. And the jaguar, eternal, inscrutable, continues her silent reign, a reminder that some mysteries are meant to inspire awe, not exploitation. Their intertwined stories echo each time dawn breaks over mist-wreathed canopy, each time an orchid unfurls its petals, each time a jaguar's silhouette flickers between ancient trees. In the faces and footsteps of these characters, we see reflected humanity's greatest challenge and highest calling, to approach the wild not with conquest, but with humility, to wield knowledge not as a weapon, but as a promise, and to recognize that the most profound discoveries may be those we choose not to expose, but to protect in the sacred hush of reverence and unspoken understanding. Mist draped the soundstage like a silken veil the morning the crew arrived, the rented warehouse transformed overnight into a living rainforest. Piped-in humidity clung to jackets and hair, and ferns in plastic tubs waited patiently for their close-up. But nothing could have prepared anyone for the first phantom growl that rippled through the rafters just as the camera rolled on the opening scene. The cinematographer, checking his lens through the monitor, froze mid-adjustment. Somewhere above, perhaps in the catwalk or the overhead rigging, a low, resonant rumble pulsed, deep as a cello's lowest string, too organic for any speaker system. Crew members exchanged bewildered glances. The director barked, "Cut!" and technicians scuttled up ladders to hunt for malfunctioning speakers. Finding none, they chalked it up to acoustic quirks, but whispered rumors persisted that the warehouse itself, once an army supply depot, harbored restless echoes of its past. Months earlier, during location scouting, the production designer had fallen through the rotten floor of an abandoned mile-long pier slated for riverbank scenes. Instead of shelving the site, the team braced rusted girders with secret steel supports, preserving the decayed grandeur that lent those nighttime chase sequences their eerie authenticity. Extras who waited on the pier between takes spoke of phantom footsteps splashing in the water, even when no one had ventured past the safety rails. Some swore the apparition resembled a stray dog, while others insisted it was the echo of a long-ago boat crashing against the pilings. The director, ever pragmatic, wove these stories into the film's legend, encouraging actors to imagine unseen threats as they raced through rain-soaked shadows. Casting for the lead role nearly unraveled when the first actor's schedule clashed with a sudden Broadway commitment. In a scramble, the casting director auditioned an obscure stage performer famous for avant-garde portrayals of mythic figures. On arrival, he produced a family heirloom, an ebony wood pocket watch said to have once belonged to a jungle explorer. The rhythmic ticking punctuated his monologue, each tick feeling like an invocation of hidden time. The director was so entranced that the pocket watch's faint click found its way into the sound mix, punctuating scenes of contemplation. Audiences later noted the almost imperceptible pulse beneath key dialogue, unaware it began as a last-minute charm brought by the actor. Filming the waterfall cavern sequence posed unique challenges. The crew built a towering scaffold outside a rocky alcove, then pumped water through hidden pipes to simulate the thunderous cascade. On the first test, the water pressure overloaded the system, sending a deluge so powerful it sheared off part of the scaffold, sending plastic ferns and stunt gear flying into the mist. The special effects team, undaunted, rigged a series of adjustable nozzles that could be throttled mid-take, giving the director granular control over the downpour. Yet even then, the roar would often echo too loudly, washing out actors' cries and forcing many lines to be dubbed later in post. One day, as actors shouted their final screams, the sound crew captured a genuine subwoofer crack, a spine-chilling snap that ended up underlining the cavern's secret chamber reveal. Script revisions themselves became a form of jungle myth. Early drafts included a subplot about a rival expedition sabotaging the protagonists. But when rehearsals revealed chemistry between the rival actor and the guide stand-in, the director rewrote the sabotage into a reluctant alliance, salvaging the relationship's emotional arc. These late tweaks arrived on napkins and coffee-stained index cards, often in the middle of the night when the writer's room convened at a nearby café. One morning, the writers emerged with a weathered card reading, "Trust is the rarest orchid." That phrase, later repurposed as a line of dialogue, became a secret motto tattooed by the guide's actor on his arm, a talisman he kept hidden under sleeve in all publicity stills. A lightning storm during a night shoot turned serendipitous when one bolt streaked across the sky just as the lead stood atop a jagged outcrop. The dailies revealed an unplanned shot of the lightning's reflection in her eyes, lending a primal intensity the director had only dared envision. The electrical department, meanwhile, grappled with power surges that blacked out entire blocks. To counter this, the gaffer borrowed military-grade generators, which hummed so loudly that coffee carts on the adjacent street trembled, yet somehow the roar vanished entirely on camera, replaced by the forest's own night chorus. Cast and crew joked that the jungle demanded its own sonic sovereignty. The animal wranglers faced their own set of peculiarities. During scenes with tamed jaguar cubs, one cub displayed a penchant for stealing hats and gloves, slinking off between takes with stolen garments that had batted like river otters with fish. Trainers retrieved these items from behind crates, sniffed and scolded the cub, then returned them, often covered in saliva or paw prints. 2 gloves had to be replaced entirely after they traveled 300 yards into the underbrush. Meanwhile, a full-grown rescue jaguar used for close-up shots occasionally refused to follow the trainer's hand signals, instead following the caterer's calls to a secluded snack table stocked with chicken wings. Production schedules shifted to accommodate the jaguar's lunchtime, granting him cameo scenes of reluctant heroism near the craft services tent. The musical score's most haunting motif, a lone, almost human whistle echoing down jungle corridors, came about by accident. While recording the score in a decommissioned chapel, a sound engineer accidentally left a small recorder running. Later playback revealed a faint, clear whistle that no musician on payroll had produced. Technicians searched for the source. No open windows, no hidden harmonicas, no prankster in the choir loft. The composer, convinced it was the forest's own melody, wove it into the soundtrack. Viewers would later describe the whistle as otherworldly, unaware it was a perfect accident captured in a century-old stone sanctuary. Special makeup effects for jungle insects also yielded unusual finds. A team of prosthetics artists sculpted oversized, vibrantly hued beetles and spiders to crawl across actors' faces. On the day of the insect attack scene, a real cicada swarm arrived, blanketing the set in a rattling drone. The director decided to blend practical prosthetics with the real insects, capturing surreal close-ups of faux beetles crawling through real clouds of cicadas. The effect, equal parts mesmerizing and nightmarish, became a fan favorite, even though it left some actors allergic and sneezing through key scenes, necessitating reshoots once their reactions subsided. Set construction for the remote research station took place on a repurposed helicopter pad on a former military base. The steel grate flooring was perfect for simulating walkway platforms, but the day shift crew found themselves rattling under phantom rotor vibrations at dawn when no helicopters flew overhead. The base's custodial staff eventually confessed that they conducted silent maintenance checks at 4 a.m., enabling them to navigate by flashlight without sign-in. These unexpected rotors lent authenticity to scenes where the station seemed at the mercy of unseen machinery, though producers finally installed sound dampeners to spare actors vertigo. Many uncredited extras played taxi drivers and villagers in the film's few urban transition shots. One regional cafe owner offered her entire kitchen gratis for a day's interior scenes, cooking local specialties so sumptuous the catering crew abandoned their trailers and lined up for bowls of spicy stew. Patrons who wandered in mid-shoot found themselves caught in the background of the street scenes, changing from customers into extras with minimal wardrobe but plenty of enthusiasm. When the scene called for a friction between locals and scientists, the cafe's real staff staged impromptu protests, shouting in meter-free Tagalog verses, later dubbed in English, much to the staff's amusement. On one of the final shooting days, the director planned a sunrise pan across a mountaintop vista. Alas, cameras caught only the heavy silhouette of clouds rolling in, dense as smoke, blotting out the dawn entirely. When the scene called for a friction between locals and scientists, the cafe's real staff staged impromptu protests, shouting in meter-free Tagalog verses, later dubbed in English, much to the staff's amusement. On one of the final shooting days, the director planned a sunrise pan across a mountaintop vista. Alas, cameras caught only the heavy silhouette of clouds rolling in, dense as smoke, blotting out the dawn entirely. Frustrated, they packed up, only to discover that the clouds had parted at a precise moment when the director's assistant had triumphed in a karaoke battle at camp that night. As the group celebrated the impromptu performance, the sky cleared for exactly 30 seconds, granting the pan its coveted golden light. The director later credited the assistant's anthem as a ritual offering, and the assistant received a credit line as Sunrise Summoner. Post-production revealed still more oddities. An assistant editor noticed that a particular scene of the jaguar cub hopping over a fallen log contained an extra frame not in the original rushes. In that split second, an unplanned shot of a crew hand pulling a vine from the cub's path appeared, a tiny moment of collective kindness accidentally immortalized. Rather than edit it out, the filmmakers left the frame in, a hidden Easter egg for eagle-eyed viewers to spot. Rumor had it the hand belonged to the script supervisor, whose children later claimed to see their parents' silhouette every time they re-watched that scene. Finally, screening prints sent to distant markets contained an inexplicable subtitle glitch. In one line, "Protect the Forest's Secret Heart" became "Protect the Foreshore's Secret Heart," prompting dozens of puzzled audience letters asking whether the film contained coastal scenes. The glitch emerged from a misaligned caption cell, a relic of an old telecine process. Distributors, amused, reissued promotional stickers cheekily referencing foreshore mysteries, turning a production hiccup into a playful marketing campaign. In the end, these strange facts wove themselves into the film's lore. Ghostly roars on sound stages, accidental musical motifs, elusive extras, and cubs with thieving paws. Crew members would gather at reunions to swap stories of whispering rafters, phantom paces through the pier, and the chorus of cicadas that turned prosthetic insects into living nightmares. They'd laugh over the cafe protests and the karaoke ritual that summoned sunrise, marveling at how each odd twist enriched the tale. And in theaters, audiences felt an intangible frisson, a sense that the jungle, more than any set or screenwriter, held its own secrets, and that those secrets had seeped quietly into every frame, waiting for those willing to chase them into the mist. The film opens on that tender moment when she kneels before the ghostly orchids, fingertips brushing moonlit veins etched like secret runes. At first glance, it feels a simple hymn to botanical wonder, yet from a critical vantage it becomes a statement of intent. This is not a story of conquest masquerading as science, but one of reverence and reciprocity. By granting the orchid such solemn attention, the film immediately establishes nature as active protagonist rather than backdrop. Viewers are invited to feel the hum of life pulsing beneath each petal, to acknowledge that discovery carries obligations as profound as the thrill of novelty. Critics lauded this choice, noting how the delicate close-ups echo documentary traditions. Yet the film refuses passive detachment, insisting that wonder must be married to accountability. In festival screenings, botanical societies praised this opening as a rare moment when cinema honors flora not as set dressing but as silent teacher, a perspective that rippled through early reviews and set the tone for what was to follow. When the team first uncovers the jaguar's massive paw prints, the moment is staged as triumph, a tangible proof of myth made flesh. Yet on closer analysis, this sequence also marks a turning point in the narrative's moral arc. The reverence with which the characters regard the footprints underscores their shift from anthropocentric ambition to cautious humility. Camera angles float above the prints, lingering in negative space to suggest that the forest itself claims more territory than any human ambition dares. This framing prompted many critics to praise the cinematographer's nuanced use of negative space, a technique that quietly subverts the notion of human mastery over nature. Rather than cutting immediately to celebration, the film holds on the ground, on the mud that will soon cleanse or consume them, an implicit reminder that every action traces an imprint on the world, and that footprints can both guide and mislead. The mid-film storm sequence, where winds batter the research station and trees bow like supplicants, operates on both visceral and symbolic levels. Rain lashes the characters, forcing them into cramped quarters where tempers fray and alliances crack. From a purely cinematic standpoint, the thunderous sound design and strobing light effects immerse the audience in sensory overload, conveying a world unconquerable by reason alone. But the chaos also mirrors the internal storms that rage within each character: fear, doubt, regret, and at times, guilt. Critics from environmental journals noted how the film uses weather not merely as spectacle but as moral reckoning. The storm speaks truths the characters cannot articulate, highlighting their smallness against elemental forces. In this way, the sequence transcends genre conventions, fusing ecological anxiety with psychological drama in a blend that reviewers described as hauntingly resonant. Then comes the cavern of ancient petroglyphs, an almost unbearably potent moment. Under flickering headlamps, the team discovers symbols of a half-human, half-jaguar figure, arms extended in a gesture of supplication. Cinematically, this is achieved with a slow push-in on the carvings, the shadows playing across the reliefs to animate them with a ghostly life. From a thematic standpoint, the scene crystallizes the film's core question: can humans approach the wild as partners rather than predators? The intercutting of the leader's outstretched hand with the carvings creates a visual echo that critics have likened to a sacred ritual. Environmental scholars praised this moment for weaving indigenous mythology into contemporary discourse, validating ancestral knowledge rather than treating it as quaint folklore. The film thus challenges Western assumptions of mastery by acknowledging older, more reciprocal ways of knowing, a choice that has fueled academic discussions around decolonizing environmental narratives. The first clear glimpse of the jaguar itself, prowling into a ring of mist beneath ancient ceiba trees, delivers raw cinematic power. Its coat gleams obsidian, muscles rippling with unspoken history, eyes reflecting both curiosity and caution. Here the film pivots from human drama to a more primal register. Sound design strips away music, leaving only the damp rustle of leaves and the jaguar's soft footfalls. So intimate is the framing that audiences often remark on sensing the creature's breath, as if sharing its heartbeat. Critics praised this sequence for its near-documentary fidelity, crediting the animal wrangler's ethical treatment of the cat and the filmmaker's refusal to anthropomorphize. Rather than impose human narratives onto the jaguar's presence, the sequence invites reverence, a quiet, wordless communion that underscores the film's central tenet, that some encounters transcend language and demand only attentive witness. Yet the euphoria shatters when they find the cub, abandoned and trembling at the jaguar's feet. This shock jolts the film into its most morally complex terrain. The leader's instantaneous rush to protect the cub carries self-evident compassion, but the arrival of weapons and blinking cameras complicates the moment. Here, the film stages a crucible of intention. Some reach to cradle the cub, others raise rifles, still others film for profit. The cinematography tightens into a chiaroscuro of human faces and animal fur, a visual metaphor for competing ethics. Critics saw in this scene an allegory for conservation conflicts worldwide, where well-meaning interventions can become exploitative. The ensuing chaos, splintered by thunder and gunfire, serves as a brutal reminder that desire to save can easily morph into a bid to possess. This sequence, they argued, is the film's most daring moral indictment, exposing the fissure between empathy and entitlement. Its emotional resonance stems from how effortlessly the film pivots from awe to terror. As rain hammers them and the panther's roar rends the air, the filmmaker's deft editing reframes the cub's vulnerability as a demand, not a plea. The cub's eyes widen in fear, and in that instant, the audience inherits the moral dilemma. Do we, as viewers, have the right to record this moment, to label it, to package it for consumption? Or must we, like the leader, accept that some truths are too fragile for exposure? By thrusting the audience into complicity, the scene transforms passive viewing into active questioning. In critical reviews, commentators lauded this gambit, calling it an emotional guillotine, whose blade hovers over our own impulse to document rather than to protect. The film's climax, set on that narrow ridgeline where forest meets sky, executes its final thematic conflagration. The jaguar mother charges through mist and uprooted trees, a vision of elemental fury. The leader, cradling the cub's limp form, stands between predator and prey in a moment shot as a sculptural tableau, light bursting through clouds, for glinting with droplets, eyes locked in proclamation. In film studies seminars, this shot is dissected for its use of vertical lines, trees, camera cranes, to symbolize transcendence, while the horizontal ridgeline suggests the fragile threshold between two worlds. Critics lauded the sequence as cinema at its elemental best, using mythic geometry to fuse human and animal narratives without erasing either. Yet the emotional powerhouse arrives in the seconds that follow. The mother jaguar's final nuzzle, so tender it dissolves the veneer of fear into shared vulnerability. This simple gesture, captured in a single, unbroken close-up, redefines the relationship. It's a moment of forgiveness and mutual recognition that critics called the film's heart chord, an emotional fulcrum that echoes long after the credits roll. Environmental activists praised this scene for humanizing conservation without sentimentality, demonstrating that respect sometimes demands stepping aside rather than stepping in. In the denouement, the station lies in ruin and the team departs with few samples but unshakable purpose. Viewers see the botanist placing her orchid vial in a secret archive, the zoologist burying his notes beneath a village floorboard, and the journalist erasing her footage before tucking her recorder away. The guide returns to his ancestral home, talisman in hand, and the leader sets out to mentor others in silent stewardship. Critics praised this resolution for subverting the triumph of science arc common in exploration films, replacing it with a triumph of restraint thesis. In essays and think pieces, commentators argued that the film's refusal to reward extraction over preservation marks a new chapter in eco-cinema, one that prizes humility as much as heroism. Beyond its narrative, the film's reception has been shaped by dialogue between audiences and scholars. Community screenings in regions rich with biodiversity have sparked debate about local conservation practices, with participants citing the film sequences as catalysts for grassroots initiatives. Academic panels trace its influence on a new wave of environmental storytelling that prioritizes indigenous knowledge over technocratic solutions. Box office success, critics note, owes as much to social media word of mouth. Viewers moved to silence and reflection, as to conventional marketing. The film's capacity to transform wonder into responsibility has proven its most enduring legacy. In the end, the film's greatest impact lies in its unflinching exploration of ambivalence, the exhilaration of discovery intertwined with the terror of overreach, the desire to witness bound up in the duty to protect. By dramatizing key events, orchid reverence, footprint revelations, storm trials, cavern communion, cub rescue, ridgeline stand, the narrative composes a symphony of moral complexity. Its emotional resonance emerges not from tidy resolutions but from lingering questions. What is our role in the world's wild places? Which stories are meant for our eyes, and which for our souls? That, perhaps, is the film's strangest magic, its power to unsettle, to inspire, and to leave us changed, carrying its echoes long after the screen fades to black. Dawn found the crew before most of the city stirred, the silence of the empty lot broken only by the hum of generator trucks and the rustle of palm fronds. That abandoned warehouse, chosen to become the rainforest's beating heart, sat grim and silent under steel girders. The art department had spent days hauling in tons of soil, planting mature ferns and kapok saplings, and rigging mist machines that curled steam through the air like ancient spirits. By the time the director arrived, the place had been transformed into a living ecosystem, a testament to the crew's devotion to authenticity. Yet even then, no one expected the first glimpse of sunlight to strike a puddle just so, illuminating the footpath in golden light that felt more real than reality itself. The cinematographer, breath-caught, barked "rolling" on instinct, capturing that accidental magic before anyone could second-guess the unplanned enchantment. Lunch on set became its own ritual, a daily pilgrimage to a food truck whose proprietor claimed recipes taught by a jungle-born grandmother. Between shots, cast and crew would mingle around steaming bowls of chicken stew spiced with lemongrass, comparing notes on which edible root had saved whose blistered feet during long hikes. Between shots, cast and crew would mingle around steaming bowls of chicken stew spiced with lemongrass, comparing notes on which edible root had saved whose blistered feet during long hikes. One day, during a break in a torrential downpour, the script supervisor emerged with a battered thermos of ginger-lime tea, a concoction so potent it cleared sinuses and fears all at once. Soon, everyone lined up to receive a mug, and the director quipped that a single sip might be the real life-saving special effect on this shoot. That tea, more than any propmaster's artifact, became the unofficial lifeblood of the cast, each cup a shared vow to endure whatever the rainforest hurled their way. Early in pre-production, the location manager had scouted a decommissioned pier along the riverbank, the creaking wood and rusted bolts whispering of bygone transport routes. Eager to capture real river scenes, the art crew reinforced planks and installed hidden braces, but no one accounted for the nightly patrols of a neighboring boat club. On the first day of filming, a sleek speedboat tore into frame, its engine roaring like an intruder, sending reflections rippling across every puddle. The extras, dressed as scientists, froze in mid-stride, eyes wide as if the wildlife themselves had stormed the set. Laughter broke out only after the craft services interceded with coffee to calm startled nerves, and the scene was res-hot moments later under the gentle hum of drone cameras, free at last from human traffic. Wardrobe fittings were a study in subtleties. Costume designers tested every fabric's reaction to humidity, discovering that some synthetics pilled under mists while cotton shirts, though authentic, weighed actors down after a day's sweat. The final compromise involved lightweight bamboo blend shirts, chosen for breathability and their eco-friendly pedigree. One day, an actor arrived wearing a second-hand jacket from a charity store, a faded leather piece embroidered with initials. Unbeknownst to all, those initials matched a real ranger's uniform from the guide's ancestral village. When the guide recognized the stitching, he burst into laughter and insisted the jacket be credited as costume inspiration. The jacket went on to become a symbol of cross-cultural serendipity, its every crease marking the convergence of fiction and lived heritage. Stunt rehearsals took place in a vacant hangar owned by an aeronautics museum. There, the team built a maze of sliding panels to mimic the shifting corridors of a derelict research station. On the first full-speed run, the lead actor barreled through a panel expecting it to open, only to find it locked in place, resulting in a spectacular pratfall that startled the stunt coordinator and elicited genuine concern. The actor emerged, more mortified than injured, and the director, watching from the monitor, quietly noted talons of authenticity in the tumble. They kept the shot in the film, embracing the unplanned moment as a marker of the character's resilience, and that hallway fall became lore among stunt crews as the perfect mistake. Night shoots proved equally adventurous. Under the hum of powerful HMI lights rigged to simulate moonlight, the crew endured sudden temperature drops that sent frogs and crickets scuttling in panic. One evening, a technician's ear radio crackled to life with the frantic chirp of real jungle creatures, uninvited in their synthetic nightscape. The sound mixer, seizing the authenticity, recorded the chorus and later wove it into the film's soundscape, merging diegetic and non-diegetic elements so seamlessly viewers assumed it was all crafted in post. That raw audio, frogs, cicadas, distant howls, became a signature of the film's immersive atmosphere, a hidden layer that scholars would later dissect in sound design seminars. One of the film's most memorable sequences, set in a cavern behind a waterfall, was shot on location in a quarry that offered an actual rock grotto. To simulate the waterfall, the special effects team installed pipes high above the cavern mouth, releasing torrents of water on command. On the first take, water surged too forcefully, smashing a section of pre-placed scaffolding designed to support lights and cameras. Stunt rigs folded, and the cavern floor became a whirl of crates and cables. No one was hurt, but the mayhem forced a complete rethink. Overnight, the effects supervisor rigged adjustable flow valves and breakaway support arms, allowing controlled release that created the illusion of wild waterfalls crashing through stone. Assistants still chuckle at how that early accident taught them the art of grace under flood. The musical score's genesis was itself a tale of improvisation. The composer, working in a makeshift studio, found that none of his digital synths captured the forest's haunting ambience. One evening, he ventured into the woods behind the soundstage, recording the wind's whisper through bamboo, the rustle of falling leaves, and the distant chirp of nightjars. Back in the mixing room, he layered those field recordings beneath piano motifs, creating a sonic fabric that felt alive. During playback, the director remarked that the score seemed composed by the jungle itself. That fusion of natural sound and melody became the film's auditory hallmark, inspiring listeners to seek out recordings of real rainforests and forging a new appreciation for environmental soundscapes in cinema. Editing sessions bristled with spirited debate. The first assembly cut ran nearly 4 hours, an epic that dazzled but exhausted. Producers fretted over pacing, editors deliberated which character arcs to trim. One heated discussion focused on the coati rescue scene, praised for its emotional depth but criticized for stalling tension. Test audiences, however, had cheered with tears at the animal's narrow escape. In the end, the editorial team chose to condense dialogue elsewhere and preserve the full rescue, trusting the audience's capacity for both action and empathy. That decision, the director later reflected, defined the film's soul: triumph balanced by tenderness, spectacle by sincere heart. Marketing the film added another layer of playful ritual. The publicity team created a scavenger hunt across major cities, planting potted orchids in subway stations marked only by cryptic carvings. Curious commuters who found a plant could redeem it for early screening tickets. The campaign sparked social media buzz, with participants sharing photos of themselves deciphering runes and barcodes hidden in the street art. One blogger even posted a time-lapse video of a planted orchid blooming under harried commuters' gaze, captioned, "From mystery to revelation, just like the film." Audiences later recounted a thrill at spotting the orchids, a living tie-in that deepened their engagement before the film ever began. On set, the director cultivated traditions to ward off fatigue. Every wrap, cast and crew gathered for lightning stories, 2-minute anecdotes of uncanny occurrences during production. Tales ranged from the phantom growl in the rafters to the speedboat surprise cameo, each story ending with the phrase, "The jungle watches," delivered in solemn refrain. These lightning rounds not only broke tension but reminded everyone that the film was as much a collaborative tapestry as it was a scripted narrative. Participants vied to spin the most spine-tingling yarn, and by the end of shooting, those stories formed an unofficial code of camaraderie, a shared mythology that transcended rolling credits. One of the crew's most sacred artifacts became a battered leather notebook belonging to the sound mixer. Within its pages lay sketches of Foley setups, cryptic symbols for field recordings, and coffee stains so numerous they looked like toddler art. Rumor held that the notebook contained the mixer's secret recipe for capturing the ideal rainstick sound. Toward the end of production, amid a flurry of final mixing, the notebook vanished, only to reappear months later in a cafe owned by the gaffer, tucked between the sugar packets and matchbooks. Its return was celebrated with a round of the ginger lime tea, and the notebook assumed an almost talismanic status, proof of how the film's creation had spilled beyond sound stages into unexpected corners of everyday life. The premiere screening took place in an old cinema whose red velvet seats had hosted premieres for classic jungle tales decades earlier. The cast and crew filled the balcony, buzzing with nerves and nostalgia. As the first frames flickered to life, the audience applauded at the overhead growl and the sweep of mist through painted backdrops. A hush fell as the orchids appeared on screen, and by the time the Jaguar emerged, feet planted firmly on rocky crest, the theater erupted in gasps of wonder. The applause at the end was thunderous, but what lingered longer were the snap judgments overheard in the lobby. "I felt the rain in my bones. That waterfall was more real than any CGI I've seen. I cried for the coyote." Such reactions, the producers noted, validated every effort, planned or improvised, and confirmed that the film had achieved its alchemy of spectacle and sincerity. In the weeks after release, film students studied its production journals, dissecting how each department's ingenuity overcame the rainforest's unpredictable temperament. Wildlife conservation groups screened it as a case study in ethical wildlife filmmaking, praising its balanced portrayal of human-animal interaction. Travel bloggers raved about the filming locations, sparking a modest ecotourism boom in the region. Even coffee aficionados tracked the ginger lime tea truck's travels, turning its schedule into a clapperboard chart. The film's production insights and fun facts inspired endless panels, podcasts, and zine articles, each retelling a behind-the-scenes tale that added depth to the final picture. Long after the cameras fell silent and the set was struck, the stories of that warehouse-turned-jungle lived on. Crew members continued to share lightning stories at new shoots, swapping tales of phantom roars and rogue animals. The ginger lime tea recipe circulated in film camps from coast to coast. The original oak talisman carved with jaguar symbols found its way to film school exhibits, a reminder that every production writes its own mythology. And for audiences, the film's on-screen magic carried the faint echo of real-world wonder, rooted in countless acts of creative problem-solving, accidental harmonies, and shared devotion to bringing a piece of the living jungle to life. In the end, the strangest and most enduring fact was this: the real rainforest had revealed itself not just in the scripted scenes, but in every unplanned moment where art and reality entwined, leaving imprints on hearts as indelible as footprints in mud. Mist clung to the air before dawn broke, draping every leaf and branch in a silken veil that caught the first pale rays of sunlight. In this hush, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as though expecting the return of some long-lost visitor. Our story unfolds here, on the riverbank where water lilies float like pale lanterns above gentle ripples, and distant birdsong threads through moss-draped boughs. The production team transformed an abandoned warehouse lot into this living tapestry, carefully planting ferns, mosses, and saplings beneath towering cranes rigged to mimic the sweep of sunrise. The result, a setting so immersive that even seasoned actors spoke of feeling the forest's heartbeat echo in their own chests. As the camera drifts through this quasi-mythical realm, every composition speaks of discovery. Wide aerial shots capture serpentine waterways cutting through emerald canopies, an overhead ballet that evokes both wonder and the fragile corridors of exploration. The cinematographer favored a Steadicam rig for these passages, its fluid motion lending the impression of gliding across the treetops. In scenes where our heroine first steps into the clearing, the frame lingers, letting viewers absorb every shade of green, from the dusky jade of submerged roots to the vibrant chartreuse of new shoots. These lingering wide-angle views suspend time, grounding us in the forest's vastness and reminding us of our own smallness. In contrast, the cavern behind the waterfall emerges in tight, intimate close-ups. Here, the camera swaps to a macro lens, capturing drops of water as they shimmer on ancient petroglyphs carved into stone. Each droplet acts as a miniature lens, refracting the dim glow of lanterns and echoing the carving's mysterious patterns. The interplay of water and rock creates a chiaroscuro that bathes actors' faces in flickering light, a visual echo of the film's thematic interplay between revelation and concealment. The rock surfaces, wet and glossy, reflect the actors' silhouettes like living murals, an effect achieved by strategically placing low-angle lights just beyond the camera's view, their beams cutting diagonals through the mist. The river itself becomes a character. In broader daylight, it glides with crystalline calm, reflecting sky and leaf alike. The production employed subtle underwater filming, plunging GoPros beneath the surface to reveal sunbeams slanting through shifting currents, suspended particles dancing in luminous shafts. These underwater sequences, edited into the narrative with slow dissolves, evoke a dreamscape where boundaries between earth and water blur. In dusk scenes, inflatable floodlights hidden atop cranes cast diffused amber glows, simulating the dying light of a setting sun. The mist machines added another layer, fine jets of vapor rolling across the water's surface, suggesting ancient spirits stirring in hidden depths. Nightfall transforms the forest into a realm of suspense. Hundreds of LED glow stones, hidden beneath fallen logs and moss, bathe the ground in a soft bioluminescent blue. These lights, controlled wirelessly via DMX, pulse in sync with the score's low-frequency motifs, turning the forest floor into a living metronome. Overhead, battery-powered HMI lights simulate moonlight, their cool, desaturated beams carving long, inky shadows that twist like watchful guards. The resulting palette, cold blues offset by phosphorescent streaks, heightens every rustle and crack, suggesting that unseen eyes track every step. Of course, not every day was such a carnival. During the second week of shooting, monsoon-like rains deluged the set, flooding the faux riverbank built along the warehouse's edge. The water pumps groaned under the torrent, cables floated like tangled snakes, and the art crew worked through the night, laying sandbags and jury-rigging gutters to channel the flow. By dawn, the entire place resembled a miniature Venice, lanterns bobbing in shallow pools, a boom operator clinging to a ladder for dear life, and the lead actor arriving in hip waders borrowed from a local fishery. Yet rather than cancel, the director seized the moment. The storm sequence would now unfold under real rain, adding a visceral authenticity no screenwriter could have scripted. Actors shivered through soaked takes, breath visible in the cooler air, and when the final cut emerged, viewers spoke of feeling every drop, blissfully unaware they were watching a rescue born of chaos. Casting the film's enigmatic guide role carried its own surprises. The original choice bowed out days before filming, citing a sudden commitment to a Broadway revival. In a frantic audition, the casting director invited a local theater actor known for avant-garde performances. He arrived carrying a handcrafted pocket watch, claiming it had once belonged to an early 20th century explorer. During his screen test, he wound the watch before each take, its soft ticking becoming a rhythmic underscore to his monologue about the forest's hidden spirits. The director, entranced, declared the watch part of the character's fabric. Sound editors later mixed its ticking beneath crucial dialogue to give the role a heartbeat. That watch, often filmed in close-up on a belt chain, became so iconographic that fans sought replicas in artisan markets after the film's release. The cavern scenes, meant to be shot in a purpose-built set, actually took place in a decommissioned quarry outside the city. The cavern's dripping stalactites and mossy walls were real, but to achieve the illusion of a hidden waterfall, the special effects team rigged hoses above a narrow arch to release a controlled influx of water. On the first take, however, the water pressure proved too great, sending a deluge that swept away a section of the lighting grid and sent fake orchids tumbling into the spray. No one was injured, but production ground to a halt as electricians and grips scurried to rebuild the rig. By nightfall, lessons learned, adjustable valves were installed, safety protocols doubled, and the resulting waterfall took on a life of its own, its thunderous rush captured in multiple slow-motion takes that became a highlight of the final cut. Training the Jaguar cubs required patience and a deep respect for the animal's intelligence. Wranglers worked with 2 rescue cubs who had never known the wild, gradually acclimating them to the set's strange rhythms. Between takes, the cubs would dash behind ferns or burrow beneath drapes, dragging hats and gloves in their wake. One afternoon, a cub pilfered the lead actress's sun visor, reappearing moments later to bat the accessory around like a toy. When the wrangler retrieved it, the cub tipped its head as if to say, "Thank you," before scuttling into a nearby prop box. The sight of the cub's impish grin, captured on a hidden angle, earned its own cred in the film's outtakes reel, delighting audiences in early festival screenings who voted it a contender for Best Animal Performance. Wardrobe posed its own conundrums. The hot, humid conditions quickly turned cotton shirts into soaked rags, while synthetic blends clung uncomfortably to sweat-slicked skin. Costume designers tested dozens of fabrics before settling on a bamboo blend material that balanced breathability with durability. Even then, actors found ways to personalize their attire. The lead applied gentle distressing to her jacket's cuffs, mimicking faded scales she had glimpsed on reptiles during a location scout. Her co-star, playing the zoologist, sewed small patches representing the recording devices he carried in the film, turning them into badges of character dedication. On the film's wrap night, both actors signed their actual costumes and auctioned them for conservation charities, guided by the story's themes of preservation and respect. Stunt sequences demanded both creativity and caution. A pivotal chase along the riverbank used custom-built rafts tethered to hidden cables, ensuring actors could navigate rapids without risk of capsizing. Yet during a rehearsal, one raft's line snapped, sending a stuntman spinning downstream. In a burst of training and reflex, the veteran actor dove in fully clothed, grabbing the stuntman's harness and swimming him to safety. The director declared the rescue cinematic heroism, and the event found its way into the final credits under Special Thanks. From then on, safety protocols were doubled. Life vests delivered at first light, redundancy in every line rigged, and the raft crew rehearsing rescues as often as the chase itself. Between takes, pop-up rituals bonded the cast and crew. At exactly 4:44 p.m. each day, an hour selected at random, the production assistant would hide in the jungle set and release a single golden balloon. Whoever discovered it earned a small prize, a vintage compass, a bar of artisanal chocolate, or a hand-drawn map to the craft services table's secret snack stash. These mini Easter eggs fostered playful competition and laughter, especially among grips and lighting techs who took pride in their hiding spots. One balloon drifted all the way across the riverbank set, lodged in a fig tree, where it remained until the final day of shooting, an unexpected marker of collective memory no one wanted to pop. Editing the film became a project of paradoxes. The first cut ran nearly 4 hours, a sweeping epic that dazzled but demanded serious endurance. Producers fretted over its length, editors locked horns over what to trim. One impassioned debate centered on the coati rescue. Test audiences raved, shedding tears, but executives urged that its pacing undercut the film's tension. In a compromise, the team reduced dialogue elsewhere and preserved the full rescue, trusting audience empathy over formulaic urgency. When the final theatrical cut premiered, that sequence still stood as the emotional fulcrum, its raw sincerity frequently cited by critics as a rare moment of genuine heart in an action-driven narrative. Within the makeshift research station, juxtaposition underscores tension. Corrugated metal walls and steel catwalks gleam under stark fluorescence, their harsh whiteness clashing with the forest's saturated tones. Cinematographer and production designer collaborated to ensure that every harsh shadow and glare spoke of human contrivance imposed upon wild chaos. When characters confer over maps and data, the camera frames them through slatted windows, fence-like bars creating grid patterns across their faces. This motif of grids recurs in wider shots of the station, rails crisscrossing over leafy depths, a visual metaphor for civilization's attempt to impose order on untamable forces. When the mid-film storm arrives, the setting shifts again. Rain towers hung high on scaffold rigs unleash torrents that drench both set and actors, transforming corrugated panels into roaring cascades. The cinematographer switches to a faster shutter speed, capturing each droplet as a crystalline bullet, emphasizing the storm's violence. Thunder lamps, giant discharge spheres fired remotely, flash in tandem with storm sound effects, creating abrupt, dazzling pops of light that fracture the darkness. Every arc of lightning becomes a stroboscopic glimpse into the forest's hidden architecture. Vines hanging like chandeliers, gnarled trunks twisting into monstrous silhouettes. The waterfall itself, rigged with hidden pipes to ensure reliability, is shot primarily from behind the veil of water. The camera peeks through slits in the curtain, focusing on actors' hands as they press against wet stone. The optics dip into negative focus on the water's surface, bokeh droplets shimmering like distant galaxies, drawing us into the cavern's secret heart. From within, a crane-mounted dolly moves in slow parabolic arcs, tracing the contour of the rock face and revealing petroglyphs that seem to pulse with the waterfall's rhythm. The effect is hypnotic, conjuring a sense of otherworldliness that blurs the line between set piece and sacred site. Throughout, color grading unifies disparate locations into a cohesive palette. Day scenes carry warm undertones, soft ochres and mossy chartreuses, while night sequences plunge into deep teal and indigo. Transitions between these palettes are not abrupt but orchestrated through rising fog and shifting light, ensuring the audience never feels jolted out of the world's spell. The graded shadows carry just enough detail to reveal hidden shapes, a cluster of orchids, a distant paw print, rewarding careful eyes with whispers of the forest's secrets. Practical effects further enrich the setting. In the grove of ghost orchids, tiny LEDs tucked into flower centers pulse in sync with composer's motifs, making petals glow as if charged by inner life. Dust and pollen machines send plumes of fine powder through the air during key wide shots, catching the sun's rays in diaphanous veils. These tactile elements heighten the sense that the forest breathes and sighs, each exhalation a chorus of hidden stories and unseen life. In scenes where the jaguar appears, the filmmaking blends real animal performance with subtle CGI enhancements. Trainers lead the cat through marked paths, ensuring safe distances, while hidden markers trigger digital effects. Whiskers twitching with fluorescence, eyes catching stray light in superhuman glints. The final shots superimpose layers. The trainer's call prompts the cat's movement, the camera's focus shift captures raw muscle motion, and post-production adds a subtle sharpening of the coat's highlights. The result feels uncanny yet authentic, a portrait of a creature that might be greater than life, yet palpably real. The final act, set atop a ridgeline at dawn, epitomizes the marriage of setting and mood. Skylines stretch into mists, peaks rising like ancient sentinels. A camera drone circles at altitude, capturing a 360-degree sweep that reveals both the film's microcosm, the small band of explorers, and the macrocosm of untouched wilderness. Below, the sunrise blooms in real time, no color correction needed. The horizon ignites in fuchsia and gold, a visceral reminder that nature's spectacles outshine any cinematic trick. Actors stand silhouetted against this vast canvas, their choices and consequences cast as long shadows across the land. Throughout all these elements, the filmmakers wield setting as character. Every location, from riverbank to cavern, from station to storm, speaks its own language, shaping the narrative's emotional arc. The lush green of onset mornings fosters hope, the metallic glare of the station conjures tension, the pallid glow of night evokes mystery, and the dawn-lit ridgeline promises both resolution and awe. Cinematography, sound design, lighting, and production design weave together in a seamless tapestry, each department echoing the film's core themes: respect for the wild, humility before the unknown, and reverence for that which defies ownership. In this world, setting is not mere backdrop but the very lens through which every heartbeat of story is magnified, inviting viewers not just to watch, but to breathe in the forest's ancient song. Mist still clung to the earthen floor when the first crew members arrived, their boots sinking into the loam as they carried lights, cables, and an assortment of props that seemed more suited to a nature documentary than a soundstage. The warehouse had been transformed overnight into a miniature rainforest, with potted palms, hanging vines, and mist machines rigged to mimic the dawn's damp breath. Yet even as the art department fine-tuned each leaf's position, whispers circulated of an uninvited guest, a stray cat that had made its way through a broken sidewall and now prowled the set, slipping between ferns and startling extras who swore they glimpsed its eyes gleaming like yellow coals in the gloom. No one knew where it came from, but by lunchtime the cat had become both mascot and legend, christened Jungle Paws by the gaffer and rewarded with scraps of grilled chicken when the caterers weren't looking. Lunch breaks themselves became mini-festivals of camaraderie. The craft services trailer, laden with steaming rice, coconut stew, and spicy skewers of fish, sat at the heart of the lot. There, stunt coordinators swapped tales of near misses, like the time a chase sequence through a flume backlit almost ended with a cameraman dunked waist-deep in cold water when a silted gate gave way, and grip trucks hummed with laughter as electricians recounted the misadventure of rigging neon lights only to discover they'd plugged them into a generator designed for hairdryers. One afternoon, a food fight erupted when an over-enthusiastic prop master flung a coconut across the table in playful defiance of protocol. Within seconds, everyone was dodging flying fruit and howling with delight, until the recently insulted lichen-covered faux statue of a coati was sacrificed in cartoonish fashion, its shattered remains offered to the chef as a peace token. Music sessions added another sprinkle of magic. Recording took place in an abandoned chapel with cavernous acoustics, whose vaulted stone ceilings lent every note a ghostly resonance. Musicians spoke of feeling a presence in the pews as they played, a sense of unseen listeners in stained-glass windows. During a late-night session, the pianist recorded a hesitation on a single chord, and when played back, the note shimmered with an otherworldly echo no reverb unit could replicate. The composer wove that hesitation into the film's central motif, a melancholic refrain that critics would later call the film's true heartbeat, a melody born of both music and mystery. Marketing leveraged behind-the-scenes lore. A lost footage teaser looped the phantom growl in the rafters, teasing fans with the question, "What stalks the warehouse after dark?" Social media lit up with theories, many drawn to the tale of Jungle Paws, the stray cat whose cameos went uncredited. The promotional team even released a short mockumentary interview with the cat's veterinarian, humorously detailing wildlife protocol for indoor felines. Audiences embraced the whimsy, and when the film opened, fan art depicted the cat wearing a director's hat, roaming the set like an unofficial assistant director. On the final day of principal photography, the cast and crew gathered in the makeshift cafeteria for one last lightning round of stories. Each tale, of phantom footsteps on the pier set, of the runaway raft, of the treasure hunt balloons, ticked off the film's challenges and triumphs. The director raised a toast in a vintage goblet scavenged from the cafe auction, calling them keepers of the jungle's secrets. As lanterns were extinguished one by one, the group lingered in the cooling night air, their laughter echoing off steel girders now draped in vines. In that moment, the set felt less like a movie backdrop and more like a shared legend, a community bound by the thrill of creation, by the dance of chaos and control, and by the unforgettable journey of bringing an impossible rainforest to life. The forest opens its arms like a cathedral of green, each leaf a stained-glass window filtering light into a silent hymn. From the very first scene, the film declares its central theme, nature as sacred interlocutor. In those opening frames, the camera lingers on dew-strung ferns, each droplet a prism reflecting the world's hidden wonders. This motif of reflection recurs throughout. Water puddles become mirrors of sky and canopy, reminding both characters and viewers that our gaze must bend back upon itself. When she kneels to inspect the ghost orchids, her reverent touch speaks to a covenant. That knowledge carries the weight of responsibility. At the heart of the story beats the theme of humility before the wild. Our heroine's journey began in childhood, chasing legends under her grandmother's guidance, stories that subtitled human curiosity with cautionary wisdom. Now, as an adult leading an expedition, she confronts the seduction of conquest versus the obligation of stewardship. Her arc mirrors the film's moral sinew. Each botanical discovery, each echo of the jaguar's growl, becomes a test of whether she will wield knowledge as dominion or as duty. In key scenes, the more she learns, the more she realizes how little she knows, a lesson etched into the film's rhythm of curiosity tempered by awe. Obsession and respect swirl together like storm clouds in the sequence where footprints first appear. Those massive imprints in the mud symbolize human impact, indelible marks that trace our presence in fragile realms. The expedition's initial elation at tangible proof of myth slowly sours as the camera holds on those prints, lingering just long enough for us to register their portent. Every footprint carries consequence. Symbolically, the prints become a crossroad between admiration and appropriation. When characters debate whether to follow these prints deeper into unknown territory, they enact the film's central conflict. Does the impulse to know justify the trespass? Water in this film functions as both cleanser and crucible. Rivers glide like liquid memory through sunlit clearings, suggesting continuity and reflection. Yet when monsoon rains strike the station, water transforms into a test. Torrents batter makeshift structures, forcing the team into close quarters where tempers fray. The storm's duality, nourishing life, overwhelming human constructs, underscores water's symbolic paradox. In the cavern behind the waterfall, water veils ancient petroglyphs, hinting that truth must be unveiled with care. Each drip resonates like a metronome marking the passage of trials, reminding us that revelation often demands immersion, sometimes drowning old certainties. The jaguar itself stands as symbol of primal sovereignty and hidden knowledge. In its first on-camera prowling, black fur catching filtered light, it signifies both subject and teacher. The forest's guardian, the living spirit of the untamed. The mother's protective fury over her cub crystallizes themes of kinship and boundary. Human trespass invites reprisal. Yet in the final nuzzle, when she reclaims her cub and acknowledges the leader's restraint, the jaguar extends a silent blessing. This gesture becomes the film's ultimate symbol of mutual respect, an unspoken pact between species that transcends language. Orchids recur as emblems of fragility and revelation. Their ghostly luminescence under moonlight frames them as tokens of epiphany, blossoms that speak of knowledge both beautiful and perilous. In early scenes, the botanist's delicate probing captures the orchid's fragility, a caution that human touch must be light. Later, when characters share awe at the orchid grove, the film ties human community to botanical wonder, forging alliances that mirror petal clusters. These flowers also symbolize the fleeting nature of discovery. Their bloom is a brief window through which the forest beckons, urging care lest beauty be extinguished. Cavern petroglyphs carved into damp stone channels themes of ancestral wisdom and continuity. Those carvings, half human, half jaguar, tell of a legacy older than any map, a lesson that knowledge must link past and present. When the leader traces these symbols with gloved fingers, she enacts communion with vanished storytellers, honoring indigenous epistemologies that frame the forest as partner rather than property. The manuscript of stone becomes a script for ethical exploration, a reminder that modern science stands dwarfed by traditions woven into every groove. The film elevates these carvings as moral coordinates, guiding viewers toward humility. Keys and locks surface subtly, most famously in the guide's talisman carved from river-worn stone. It symbolizes both access and guardianship, an invitation to enter sacred spaces, contingent upon vow. When he presents it to the leader, their bond crystallizes, knowledge exchanged for protection. This talisman echoes the narrative's recurring lock-and-key metaphor, understanding unlocked through respect and opportunity closed by exploitation. In a crucial scene, a key-shaped vine in the riverbank hints at paths opened only by those who listen, its silent pose a testament to reciprocity between human and wild.